For sinister trail guide tales that expose cursed secrets and uncover spine-chilling horrors, Lisa clutched the job offer tightly, her heart racing. Trail guide. It felt like a lifeline tossed to her in stormy seas. Hollow Creek was advertised as an idyllic haven, but rumors of the cursed creek danced in the air like the persistent mist that hung over the woods, thick, choking, heavy with secrets. The town's beauty wasn't without a sinister undercurrent. Hikers vanished, shadows lurked just beyond the trail. This job was for her kids, Evan and Mia, aged 9 and 7, but was she leading them towards safety or certain doom? As she stepped onto the first trail, the trees loomed overhead, their gnarled branches creaking softly. The sun slanted through the leaves, casting shifting patterns of light and shadow, an illusion of warmth. With each step, Lisa felt the weight of anticipation, and beneath it, a suffocating dread creeping in. Was it just her imagination, or did the forest feel alive, watching her? The first day passed with ominous normalcy. Fellow guides greeted her with nervous smiles, their laughter brittle. "Watch out for the creek," one warned beneath a nervous chuckle, "it has a way of taking what it wants." He didn't seem to be joking. She found herself eyeing the symbols carved into the tree's tangled runes that sent shivers down her spine. She tried to focus, to tell herself it was all nonsense, but whispers threaded through her thoughts, missing hikers, strange lights flickering in the dark, and the stories of those who simply didn't return. Then came the day that turned her world upside down. Leading a small group through the cursed creek, she felt an edge of panic slice through the serenity. The air thickened, the atmosphere crackling with tension, like the moment before a storm. One minute, her group was enjoying their hike, and the next one of the seasoned hikers was gone. Just like that. Her heart pounded in her chest as she called his name, glancing back and forth at the trees that seemed to close in. The others laughed it off, but Lisa's instinct screamed something was wrong. The laughter faded, replaced by the chilling embrace of silence. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. The disappearance slipped like a knife through the heart of the town, but no one seemed worried. They avoided her gaze, their eyes darting toward the woods. Something sinister hung in the air like rotting fruit. She pressed them for answers, each whispered word deeper, darker than the last, twisting through layers of folklore perversely tied to Hollow Creek's roots. With each revelation, Lisa began to realize the horrifying truth: she was part of a cycle of darkness, her family ensnared in a web of curses passed through generations. The deeper she dug, the more she felt the suffocating shadows inching toward her. The burden of their secrets threatened to break her, but her responsibility to Evan and Mia fueled her. She sensed something lurking just out of sight, a predatory instinct locking onto her family, a malevolent force that preyed on the vulnerable and the unsuspecting. Lisa's fragile sense of trust shattered when she overheard hints of betrayal among her coworkers, smiles twisting into masks hiding hunger for secrets, and then the shadows pressed in. They seemed to whisper her name, threading her past into this tale of horror. With her heart racing and panic coursing through her veins, she realized the truth was worse than she could have ever imagined. As she turned to escape the woods, the chilling realization gripped her: the darkness wasn't just in Hollow Creek, it was her own bloodline entwined in this cursed legacy. The shadows devoured the light, and she had one terrifying question: could she outrun the fate that had bound her family to this cursed trail? Lisa stumbled back, breath hitching in her throat as the trees closed in around her. The shadows were darker now, thicker, almost tangible. Panic clawed at her mind, each heartbeat echoing like a war drum. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her, waiting, lurking just beyond the closest trunks. Still, she had to get to her kids. The thought of Evan and Mia lost in this nightmare spurred her forward. Turning on her heel, she dashed through the brambles and tangled roots, a path formed by fear and desperation. Each step reverberated through her, the ground seeming to shift beneath her feet. The whispers echoed louder now, not just in the wind but piercing through her very soul. They formed half-formed words that danced just beyond her comprehension. Warnings? Curses? Lisa tightened her grip on the guiding pole like a lifeline. Come back. She called out, voice desperate as she headed toward the main path, heart racing. But the forest only answered with a deafening silence. The oppressive weight of the trees around her felt like an ancient grip, as if they were alive and hungry for secrets. She darted forward, her only aim to reach the cabin where her children waited, blissfully unaware of the gloom lurking just beyond their playful laughter. When she emerged from the underbrush, she stumbled onto the main trail but was met with an unsettling sight. The usual influx of hikers had dwindled to just a small group of jittery tourists flickering glances back over their shoulders. What had become of the laughter? The lightness? Lisa felt a chill creep up her spine as she approached them. Have you seen? She started, but they cut her off. Get out! One of them shrieked, eyes wild. You don't belong here. The others nodded in frantic agreement, clearly unhinged. Please, my children are at the cabin. No. You must leave. It's coming. We can't stay here. Their frantic gestures indicated a growing sense of terror, driving Lisa to the edge of reason. What's coming? Lisa shouted but was drowned out by the rising hum of panic. The group scattered, leaving her alone again, the forest's dependencies choking her thoughts. Returning to the cabin felt like a distant dream. Alone now, every step toward the children felt surrounded by a looming dread that gripped her throat. As she neared the clearing, the sunlight faded. Dark clouds loomed overhead, unraveling the pristine day. Where there had once been the cheerful sounds of the kids' laughter now echoed an eerie stillness. Cautiously, she stepped into the clearing. The cabin loomed before her, its windows dark. Had she been foolish to think this job would bring stability? The light inside flickered weakly, as if anticipating her arrival. Her heart thrummed loudly, anticipating the worst. Evan. Mia. Lisa called, panic tightening in her chest as she lunged toward the door. But it swung open with a creak that echoed ominously. The inside felt cold, devoid of warmth. Mom. A voice drifted out, but it didn't sound right. There was an echo, a displacement to it. Mouth dry, Lisa stepped inside. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls, and the hairs on her arms prickled. A chill crept in, freezing her where she stood. The living room was empty. Photos hung crookedly on walls, faces staring blankly, a kind of hatred lurking in their frozen smiles. Lisa's heart thudded. Only silence met her, vibrating like a wire pulled too tight. Evan. Mia. She called, voice shaking but fiercely hopeful. Then movement caught her eye. A dark figure shifted just outside the window, nightmarish against the backdrop of the fading day. An icy realization washed over her. The shadows were beginning to spread from the corners, tendrils slithering across the floorboards. Turning back felt impossible. This was the moment that would seal their fate. She took a breath, readying herself to face whatever lurked out there, whatever she had unwittingly awakened, and whether her children's voices would answer her trembling call. Could she save them before the darkness bound them all? The air thickened in the cabin, almost suffocating. Lisa felt like she was being pushed down into it, the shadows curling around her ankles like fingers. Evan? Mia? The words sputtered from her mouth, desperate and frantic. The silence that followed was deafening. She stepped deeper into the room, fighting against the claustrophobic dread that wrapped around her. The flickering light above cast unsettling shapes across the walls, twisting the faces in the photographs into grotesque caricatures. They seemed to leer at her, as if some dark satisfaction was found in her terror. What happened here? She whispered, feeling utter dread seep into her bones. A sudden crash from the back of the cabin snapped her head around. Evan. Mia. Panic surged anew, and she sprinted toward the sound, each footfall heavy with a foreboding sense. The hallway stretched out before her like a dark tunnel, her flashlight beam wavering against the oppressive darkness, making her way to the kitchen. The air turned even colder, stinging her lungs. The door swung ajar, revealing a sprawling mess of overturned chairs and broken plates. But no children. Just shadows. Then, a soft giggle pierced the silence. "Evan? Mia?" She called again, her heart leaping. It had come from outside, that light-hearted sound, innocent, playful. It couldn't be her imagination. She darted outside, stumbling over the threshold into the baleful twilight. The clearing, once so vibrant, was dying under the weight of encroaching shadows. The trees swayed, whispering recklessly, like they were sharing secrets she dared not understand. "Evan. Mia." The last syllable echoed into the gathering gloom. And then there they were. Figures shrouded in dark, their backs to her. Lisa squinted to make out their shapes. They looked like her children, but as she drew closer, doubt twisted her gut. The silhouettes felt wrong, too still, too observant. "Evan. Mia." She shouted again, arms stretching toward them. The figures turned, revealing faces drenched in shadows, eyes wide and glimmering unnaturally in the dim light. They were smiling, but it wasn't their smiles. The expressions danced too broadly, twisting their innocent features into something sinister. "Mom. Come play," one called out, the voice sounding like a warped echo from the past. Lisa froze. They looked just like the photos inside, contorted and unnatural. A cold realization washed over her, they were not her children. She stepped back, heart racing, breath quickening, but the more she retreated, the more the children advanced, drawn toward her like moths to a flame. Suddenly, the trees creaked and groaned, the shadows flickering like candle flames caught in a gust. The air thickened, a pulse echoing around her, the forest becoming alive. "This isn't real." She gasped, but the words fell flat in the encroaching dark. The figures advanced, their bodies blending with the shadows, sinister laughter bubbling from the depths of their throats. "Join us, Mommy." They chimed in unison, voices overlapping, creating a dissonance that scratched at her sanity. The ground quaked slightly beneath her, panic surging, claws of terror clutching her heart. What was this cursed nightmare? "No! Get away!" She screamed, stumbling back, desperately searching the trees for an escape, any direction that might lead her to safety or back to the truth. The laughter grew louder, the shadows thicker. Darkness rushed toward her, an unyielding tide. Just as the laughter crescendoed, the ground split, a gaping maw revealing endless blackness, an invitation to oblivion. Lisa's instincts kicked in, adrenaline surging. She turned, bolting back toward the cabin, the shadows snapping at her heels, closing in like a noose. But in the depths of her panic, a glimpse of hope sparked, a flicker of light from inside. Could she make it back before the shadows swallowed her whole? As she raced through the clearing, something reached out from the darkness, something alive, and somehow, she knew, she had only just begun to scratch the surface of the horror that awaited her. What awaited Lisa in the heart of the cabin, the light or the dark? Would she embrace one or succumb to the other? The cabin loomed closer, its presence a fragile refuge against the consuming void. Lisa's heart thudded in her chest like a war drum. The shadows clawed at her, mocking her retreat. With every frantic step, she felt the breathing dark behind her alive, hungry. The door stood slightly ajar, a sliver of light slicing through the darkness like a beacon. She hurled herself inside, slamming it shut almost violently. The impact echoed in the stillness, a heartbeat against the silence. She leaned against the door, chest heaving, heart racing. "Mom!" Her breath caught as the chilling familiarity of that voice wrapped around her like a noose. It was nothing like their usual chirp, distorted and haunting. Lisa shot her head around, scanning the darkened room that offered no solace. "Mia?" A piercing giggle echoed from the corners of the cabin, making her skin crawl. Without thinking, she grabbed a nearby lamp. Its metallic surface felt cool and reassuring in her sweating palms. "Stay back," she warned, pointing the lamp into the growing shadows. They wavered, retreating just enough for her to feel slightly less suffocated. Footsteps echoed from the nearby hallway, slow and deliberate, like a predator stalking its prey. "Evan. Mia." Lisa pleaded, trying to pierce the shroud of darkness with her frantic chant. But the footsteps continued, unyielding, each one a drumbeat in the rhythm of her unraveling sanity. The flickering bulb overhead buzzed, casting jagged shadows that twisted and danced, mocking her. The photos lining the walls seemed to shift, the faces of her children smiling in cruel imitation. The soft, warm memory of them laughing in the sun turned cold, twisted into grotesque forms that loomed over her with empty eyes. "Join us, Mommy," the voices whispered, a cacophony of her children's voices layered upon one another like a choir of lost souls. A chill slithered down her spine. She backed away, searching for an escape route, but the room seemed to constrict. Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, flooding the room with thick, tar-like darkness, twisting into forms that threatened to envelop her. The lamp flickered violently before dying, plunging her into an abyss. Then, burst a single, bright light pierced through the darkness, illuminating the corner of the cabin. Heart pounding, Lisa sprinted toward it, heedless of the chaos around her. "Mom! Over here!" The familiar call shone like a beacon, the light becoming warmer, muddled but pure. She felt drawn to it, instinctively believing it was an answer to her despair. But then, doubt clenched her heart again. The glow flickered like a mirage, shifting and distorting, and she hesitated. As she approached the source, it took form, a mirror, gleaming and untouched by the surrounding decay. "Mommy, help us." The voice morphed into a taunting laughter as the mirror warped, reflecting distorted images, her children trapped within. Tears streamed down Lisa's face as the realization dawned. This was the very essence of the shadows, feeding off her fears. "Let them go," she screamed, her voice raw, echoing within the dark cavity of the cabin. The mirror cracked, pieces scattering like shards of her own sanity. Each glimmering fragment revealed a different reality, hers, twisted into nightmares. What truths was it reflecting? The laughter crescendoed, a deafening chorus blending with a howling wind ripping through the creaking cabin. Suddenly, the mirror imploded, shards flying in all directions. Lisa shielded her face, heart racing as chaos exploded around her. She felt a weight lift, as though the shadows were pushed back momentarily, but the reprieve was short-lived. A monstrous growl rumbled from the depths of the fractured mirror. In an instant, darkness swarmed over her again, encompassing the cabin as the shadows roared back to life, more alive than before. What had she fragmented? What lay beyond the snatches of reality within those shards? As the dark surged, twisting and bending toward her, Lisa knew the next encounter would be far worse than before. Could she face the truth that lingered just beyond her reach? The light threatened to flicker out once more, and this time, would she know what to fight for? The air thickened around Lisa as shadows writhed, each inch of darkness seemed to throb with anticipation. The chaos from the shattered mirror quieted, but something far more sinister brewed in its stillness. An oppressive weight settled over her, clinging like a damp shroud, suffocating and cold. "Mommy," the plea twisted her heart, pulling her deeper into despair. The familiar voice now had an edge, like fingernails scraping across metal. Each echo grated against her sanity. "Where are you?" She called out again, bracing herself against the wall, her fingers shaking against the rough wood. No response came except the oppressive silence. Anger rippled through her, battling fear. She hated this. Hated being trapped in this nightmare. But then, without warning, the shadows twisted, dissolving into vague figures that shuddered at the edges of her vision. They moved, like marionettes with tangled strings, forming into shapes that resembled her children but morphed quickly into grotesque parodies. Deformed smiles and hollow eyes stared back, devouring her hope. She clutched the lamp tighter, its absence leaving her feeling naked and exposed. "Get away from me!" she yelled, swinging it in desperation as the darkness coiled closer. The action felt futile, and yet it grounded her. "Help us!" The voices were a chorus of children's pleas, taunting and jarring, and they echoed louder now, filling the cabin with an unbearable cacophony. Lisa stumbled backward, her heart racing as if trying to escape her chest. The walls seemed to shimmer, the wood warped, breathing, pulsing like a living thing. She felt dizzy as sickness creeping in, gnawing at her insides. Then, an arm shot out from the darkness, an unmistakable silhouette forming. She froze, dread flooding her veins. "Mia?" The figure twisted unnaturally, limbs stretching in ways they shouldn't. It reached out, fingers splaying wide, yet as it did so, it laughed, deep and sinister. "Come play with us, Mommy." Lisa's stomach churned, panic igniting her limbs. She turned to run, but the shape lunged forward, catching the hem of her shirt with fingers that felt both cold and wet. She staggered, yanking herself free just as a chorus of shadows snapped together, trying to reel her back in. "No! No!" she shouted, pushing her way toward the door. She slammed into it, her palms flat against the warped wood. A frantic shove. Would it yield? Would freedom be waiting on the other side? The handle rattled but held firm, laughter swirling around her like smoke. "You can't leave, Mommy." The voices jeered again, thickening her throat. She could hear their giggles, like the joyous sounds of a celebration twisted cruelly in the air. Frantic thoughts swirled in her mind. The children were here somewhere. Shoved into this tainted darkness. She couldn't abandon them. Even as she felt her resolve slowly unravel, a part of her clung stubbornly to hope. "Come on, come on," she muttered under her breath, panic fueling her strength as she shoved against the door again. Then suddenly it swung open, revealing an inky blackness that seemed to swallow the light. She squinted into it, dread washing over her as she felt invisible tendrils pull at her ankles, beckoning her back to confinement. The voices transformed once more, melding into a threatening symphony that swirled into format clarity. But in one piercing moment, she caught a glimpse. Evan and Mia stood at the door of the darkness, their faces pale and sunken, eyes wide with fear. "Mommy, please no!" she screamed, rushing back as the moment of clarity slipped between her fingers like sand. "I want to let you take them." But as she surged forward, the darkness leaped back, swallowing Evan and Mia whole, her breath caught. She froze, the growl from the shattered mirror returned, vibrating the very foundation of the cabin. The air trembled with rage as the shadows thickened, and Lisa felt her heart plummet. What had she done? What monster had she awakened? As the shadows closed in on her, she grasped the lamp as her last defense. The choice, the fight of her life lay ahead. But would she have the strength to confront the truth entwined within her shattered world? The cabin howled around her, each breath of darkness an invitation to despair. What awaited Lisa when the dark finally came to claim her? The shadows slithered closer, and Lisa's heart pounded like a drum in a funeral march. Every breath felt strained, every heartbeat a countdown to her demise. The darkness was no longer just a void, it was alive, a beast hungry for her fear. "Mommy." The voices came again, softer now, but still layered with an unsettling eeriness that twisted through her bones. They sounded distant yet so painfully close. She took a shaky step back, glancing behind her at the open door that yawned like an abyss. The lamp flickered, its weak light barely piercing the overwhelming darkness ahead. This was no ordinary night, the light danced like a dying ember, casting frantic shadows that twisted into monstrous forms on the walls. "Stop it!" she screamed, voice cracking, desperate. This room that once felt like home now brimmed with malevolence. A chill tidied its way through the air, coiling around her throat, squeezing tighter with every breath. The voices morphed into laughter, cruel and discordant. "You can't hide from what's in you." In a surge of defiance, she lifted the lamp high, illuminating the surrounding walls. For a moment, she felt a flicker of hope. But as the light flickered once more, it revealed grotesque drawings that adorned the cabin, images of despair, thick streaks of crimson that ran like rivers through the twisted depictions of her children, eternally screaming. Horrified, Lisa stepped back, her foot slipping on something slick. She looked down, reeling as she saw remnants of shattered glass embedded in the floor, glinting ominously. The shards, remnants of her shattered reflection, seemed almost alive, shifting and writhing at her feet, mirroring her own fractured psyche. "No!" she cried out, shaking her head as if that would clear away the madness. But the voices pulled her attention again, slipping under her skin. "Help us!" Something inside her twisted painfully. "I'm trying!" she yelled, the frustration breaking free from her throat, a primal scream that pierced through the malicious laughter. But even as she fought against despair, doubt seeped in, planting seeds of unworthiness. What if she was too late? What if she was the reason they were trapped? The air crackled and shifted, thickening with tension. Then, with a suddenness that took her breath away, the door slammed shut, enveloping her in darkness. An unearthed rage exploded within her. She hurled the lamp at the walls, the glass shattering on impact, light scattering like fireflies in a storm. The laughter grew louder, rising to a deafening roar as shadowy shapes began to materialize in the corners of the room, dark forms inching closer, their hollow, gaping mouths merging with the cries of her children. "Why won't you help us, Mommy?" they chanted, their voices melding into a horrifying symphony of despair. Lisa could feel their agony, a kinship rising within her heart. "Please. I'll save you," she pleaded, the weight of desperation crashing down upon her. But the shadows lunged forward, and she stumbled, catching herself against a wall swirling with dark energy. The growl grew louder, reverberating from the shattered mirror, calling to her, tempting her to submit to that familiar voice of despair. join us," it whispered, seducing every fragmented part of her filled with torment. Lisa pressed her palms to her ears, tears streaming down her cheeks. She could still feel them, the warmth of their small hands wrapped around her fingers, reminding her of love amid the terror. She needed to believe in that love. She had to fight. As she grasped the last shard of the lamp, she prepared for the final stand. The darkness surged forward, a tsunami of dread, and the moment hung there, heavy and charged. All she needed to do was reach for the truth that lay buried beneath her fears. Could she find it before the darkness swallowed her whole? In that moment, she made her choice. But which truth would rise from the depths? Would it be the truth of love, or the cold grip of despair? The shadows lunged into her, inviting her back into the fold of darkness with an icy embrace. What hidden secrets would emerge from the depths if she dared to face them? The darkness enveloped Lisa, pressing against her like a weight too heavy to bear. She could feel its tendrils probing her soul, searching her for the scraps of her fear. Every breath she took felt like an act of bravery, each pulse of her heart a declaration of resistance against the encroaching void. With the last shard of glass in her hand, hope surged within her, sparking and bright against the suffocating blackness. "You don't own me," she shouted, the words shattering the echo of their pleas. She felt the air tremble as the shadows recoiled, momentarily weakened by her defiance. But it was fleeting. The darkness regrouped, swirling around her like a storm, its laughter fading only to be replaced by whispers sibilant and cruel. "Your love won't save you. It only chains you to us." The walls closed in, and each breath felt harder. Memories flashed before her eyes, the soft laughter of her children, their tiny faces illuminated in joy, the bedtime stories that wrapped them in warmth. But those memories twisted under the weight of despair, disintegrating like dry leaves in the autumn wind. She staggered back, the shifting glass at her feet digging into her skin like splinters. "Mommy, please." The pleas transformed, echoing deeper, resonating with the tone of her own doubts. "If you love us, why aren't you here? Why can't you save us? Stop it." The scream tore from her throat as raw as her fear, sending cracks through the shadow's facade. But the shadows closed in tighter, the laughter returning, dark and derisive. Lisa could feel the icy fingertips of despair brushing against her skin, taunting her vulnerability. Doubt flooded her mind. What if I am too late? A new voice, a whisper of truth slithered through her consciousness. What if it's your fault? Each word hurt more than the last, each echo amplifying her self-loathing. She dropped to her knees, the shard clattering from her grasp, the light surrendering to the darkness. Mommy. The echoes of her children twisted, becoming something more. Anguish and longing merged, and she could see silhouettes in the mist, their faces obscured but familiar enough to break her heart. She reached out toward the shadows, desperate. Please. Just let me help you. But as her fingers reached forward, the shadows rippled like a lake disturbed. A pair of glowing eyes emerged from the void, burning with an insatiable hunger. Help us? Help yourself first. Lisa flinched, her courage crumbling. The door, previously bolted shut, rattled violently as if something wanted to burst through. Terror clawed at her throat, she felt it pulse like a living thing. Mommy. We're right here. A chorus of voices surrounded her, overlapping in a nightmarish cacophony, drowning her thoughts in panic. Then the moment froze, as did the shadows. Time held its breath. The eyes, now piercingly closer, seemed to search through her very essence. What did they want from her? And could she confront it? With a sudden clarity, Lisa realized the truth buried deep within the shadows. The darkness whispered of a choice, an insidious bargain waiting to be struck. The thought sent a chill through her spine as she felt the weight of that choice, a secret yet to be revealed. Face us. Face your fears. The shadows surged forward, their forms swirling like smoke, ready to engulf her once more. She had moments to decide. Would she unleash the part of her that sought to protect her children, or would she let the darkness consume them all? With her heart racing and terror gripping her soul, she breathed in deeply, preparing for the confrontation to come. A path lay before her, but which direction would she choose toward salvation or deeper into despair? As the shadows lunged again, she knew the answer awaited her in the depths. What would she unearth in the abyss of her own fears? Would it be the key to rescuing the ones she loved, or would it unlock something more sinister that she had long hidden away? The darkness swallowed her whole, consuming the last flicker of her hope. Lisa felt the glass shard slip from her fingers, lost among the swirling tendrils that seemed to taunt and mock her. The icy fingers of despair wrapped around her throat, their grip tightening as if trying to silence her completely. Where are you? A voice echoed. It was soft but unmistakably her children's. Each faint whisper seemed to lure her deeper into the void. You promised. Lisa squeezed her eyes shut, willing the memories to flood back more clearly. Their laughter, their small hands grasping hers, the fleeting moments filled with joy and warmth. But these memories warped, twisted into grotesque mockeries of themselves. The rich laughter turned into cries and screams. Mommy! Echoed from all directions, distorted and layered, drowning her in despair. Enough! She cried out, the boldness of her voice betraying the terror inside. I want to let you take them. The shadows shivered, recoiling momentarily as if her words bore weight. But the moment passed, and they surged back, more relentless than before. Lisa's heart pounded wildly. An urge to break free, to escape the inky masses that threatened to crush her spirit, built her inside her. She fought against the darkness wrapping around her limbs, the oppressive weight pushing down on her chest. I will find them. She screamed, but doubts festered in her mind. What if they were gone? What if she had already failed? For just a split second, the darkness flickered. Surging shadows revealed fleeting glimpses of fragile forms, faces swimming in and out of view like mist. Could it be? Was she truly seeing them? Her breath quickened, hope clawing its way back. Henry? Amy? She whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. Suddenly, the walls around her began to pulse, shimmering softly. The shadows responded with a chorus of guttural howls, furious at her defiance. They twisted and coiled, surrounding her, trying to reclaim their dominance. The negativity was palpable, yet so was the spark of love still ignited within her, an ember glowing brightly against the choking dark. "No!" she yelled defiantly. "I am their mother. I choose to fight." The ground trembled beneath her as shadows writhed and coiled, a storm of swirling despair and hope. For every step she took, the embrace of shadows pulled back slightly. She could feel a faint warmth creeping in, a shimmering path materializing amid the chaos. But at what cost? What could this dark entity pull from her? What truth lurked beneath this choice? Lisa felt the murmur of the shadows, a low and sinister chant pulsing through the air. Sacrifice for freedom. As she moved forward, panic clawed at her insides. The air thickened, wrapping tighter around her, making each step a battle. "What must I give?" she cried into the void, her voice breaking with desperation. The shadows paused for a heartbeat, their viciousness retracting momentarily as though considering her question. "What you cherish most," they hissed, the words slithering back into the darkness with a chilling promise. The weight of the shadows intensified, plunging Lisa deep into a cold, gnawing fear. What did they truly want her to sacrifice? The faces of her children flashed through her mind, a searing reminder of every choice, every moment lost. In that instant, she realized this wasn't just about facing her fears. It was about confronting the darkest parts of herself, the weaknesses that had haunted her for years. Lisa, the name drifted softly, chilling her spine. It was barely a whisper, yet she could feel it vibrate with meaning. Face the choice or lose them forever. The shadows pulsed with energy, drawing closer as she stood on the precipice of unimaginable decision. Suddenly, a piercing light erupted through the darkness, illuminating a path she hadn't noticed before. Was it escape or a deeper descent into horror? With a heavy heart and trembling hands, she took a step toward the light. Would this lead her to her children or to something even darker, waiting patiently to be awakened? The moment Lisa stepped into the light, the shadows recoiled with a deafening hiss, as if her very presence was a weapon against their eternal night. The light enveloped her, casting away the gloom momentarily, revealing a narrow path lined with flickering flames that danced in the cool air. Each flame had a distinct face, the faces of those she had lost, their features contorted in a blend of sorrow and hope. "Mommy!" A familiar voice broke through the chaos, echoing in the hallowed space. Her heart raced as she recognized Amy's voice calling for her. The flames shifted, forming images of her children reaching out, fingers stretching toward her, filled with desperate longing. The warmth of hope spread through her, but her resolve wavered as an icy dread crept over her again. "Stay close. I'm coming," she shouted back, though the pit of her stomach twisted with the fear that her words could be nothing more than empty promises. The flames flickered and shivered, revealing images of darkened places where shadows hung thick, full of despair and regret. Lisa recognized them: abandoned homes, empty playgrounds, former classrooms where laughter had once flourished. Each sight bore a weight of sorrow, memories trapped in a loop of despair. The shadows whispered again, their voices seductive and smooth. "Sacrifice what you cherish most, to save them." "No!" Lisa spat defiantly, clenching her fists. "I want to let you twist this." The path began to shift beneath her feet, pulling her forward, urging her deeper into the heart of this otherworldly landscape. The faces in the flames matured and aged, becoming mirages of despair, reflecting her own failures back at her, choices she wished she could change, moments she had spent oblivious. The deeper she went, the more vivid those memories became, unraveling her resolve like a frayed thread. Just then, the ground trembled violently. She stumbled as the earth cracked open beneath her, revealing a chasm of darkness filled with twisted shapes and writhing forms. Nightmarish creatures clawed at the edges, their haunting cries feeding her panic. Lisa's heart raced as she fought to regain her balance, resisting the pull toward the abyss. Not again, she murmured, recalling the time she had stood at the edge of despair before. Suddenly, a shadow surged forward, blacker than the surrounding darkness, darting past her like a wolf in the night. It whispered her children's names, a mocking echo that chilled her beyond belief. Henry. Amy. Each name bore the weight of inevitability and desperation. Stop! She screamed, the sound carrying a weight she didn't know she had in her. The darkness hesitated momentarily, the shadows freezing in place as if they, too, sensed the strength of her fear. With newfound resolve, Lisa pushed forward, clutching the warmth of her love for her children like a shield, but doubts clawed at her heart. What if she failed? What if the very act of defiance drew them closer to doom? As she navigated the twisting path, the flames flickered again, projecting shadows of her children, laughing, playing, innocent. The scene warped, shifting as the laughter transposed into sobs. "Mommy! We're scared!" they cried, their faces now twisted in fear. "Hold on. I'm coming!" she shouted again, her voice trembling but fierce. A final burst of light shimmered ahead, promising an exit, liberation. Yet the murmur of shadows grew louder, insistently weaving through her mind. Sacrifice what you cherish most. Lisa paused, trembling, the decision warring within her. Would it be her choice to condemn them or to fight for their salvation? Suddenly, the world trembled violently. She had to act. To find her children, what would she sacrifice? As she tore her gaze from the beckoning light, the darkness surged forward, wrapping around her like a noxious shroud, filling her lungs with cold despair. There was no turning back now, or was there? The shadows howled in anger and despair. "Lisa!" a voice cried from the chasm, chilling her with its urgency. And then silence. In that moment of stillness, she understood. The choice was hers alone, but it carried a price she had not yet fathomed. Would she risk everything to save them? The darkness throbbed, waiting for her answer. The darkness roared, a symphony of despair crashing down on Lisa like waves in a storm. Time felt suspended, the weight of choices crushing her spirit as shadows slithered around, searching for her resolve. She could see glimpses of her children's faces flickering within the folds of the dark, a haunting mix of innocence and torment, tugging fiercely on her heart. "Mommy, help us!" their voices echoed, warped but undeniably theirs, and the sound sliced through her fear like a knife. A sudden clarity burst forth, igniting a fire within her to fight, to protect. The shadows were right, she had to choose. But did that choice mean surrendering something precious? With trembling determination, she stepped forward, forcing her feet to move through the thick shadows that clung to her like a second skin. "I would give anything to save you." The darkness recoiled slightly, and she felt the light within her fueled by love burning brightly against the void, but then, a low whisper twisted through the air, seductive and chilling. "Anything but what, Lisa?" "No." She gasped, her heart racing, as doubt clawed anew at her insides. "I want to let you take control. I choose to fight for my children." The shadows writhed in response, swirling as if they were alive and angry. "Then join us, embrace the truth." They reached out again, wrapping around her throat, squeezing, as though the very essence of her fears was being siphoned away. "Keep your darkness," she shouted defiantly, clutching the warmth of her love tightly in her heart. "I'll find them no matter the cost." The shadows cried out, retreating momentarily as she surged forward, unyielding. Ahead, the path converged into a radiant light. This time, she didn't hesitate. The echoes of her children's laughter filled her ears as she stepped into the illumination, the shadows twisting and agonizingly recoiling against its touch. The light enveloped her, transparent tendrils reaching toward her, filling her with hope and clarity. "Mommy! We're here!" Evan and Mia shouted from the center of the brilliance, their faces shining bright like beacons of joy amid the darkness encasing them. They were just beyond reach, their arms extended, and Lisa felt her heart lurch. "Hold on. I'm coming!" she cried, determination surging as she raced forward, but the shadows surged back, a swirling tempest determined to consume them all. They howled fiercely, clawing desperately for her, thirsting for the despair they had harvested. Suddenly, the brightness began to flicker. "No! Stay! Please!" Lisa begged as anger and determination surged within her, but the flickering lights cast grotesque images against the walls, the darkness battling for supremacy and tugging her backwards, threatening to drag her under once more. At that moment, her thoughts raced back through the years, her failures, her doubts, all those moments she felt disconnected. Tears pooled in her eyes as the memories twisted, yet from the depths, one truth emerged like a glimmer of hope: love thrives even in the darkest places. "No!" she roared, pushing forward with every last ounce of strength. "I want to let you take them." With a surge of adrenaline, she reached for the light and grasped her children's hands. The second their fingers intertwined, an electric shock coursed through her, igniting an eruption of blinding brilliance that swept against the darkness. The shadows screamed, writhing violently as the light tore through their form, unraveling their hold on her soul. In a rush of radiant energy, Lisa felt warmth blossom within her. It began in her heart, suffusing angrily through every limb, pushing back against despair. The power of her love illuminated every tortured memory, each moment of doubt now shining like a guiding star. "Mommy," Mia's voice cut through as the light enveloped them, and in that heartbeat, Lisa realized that sacrifice didn't mean losing herself. It meant embracing the love they had, the joy, the memories woven into their very beings. "You already made the ultimate sacrifice. You chose to love us." The shadows crumbled in a cacophony of sound, echoing with rage and despair. "You cannot take them. You belong to us." But it was too late. Their shouts faded as the vibrant light exploded, and with one final push, the void was cast away, vanishing into the ether. Lisa and her children stood together, radiating an incandescent glow. The forest around them transformed, colors blooming anew, sunlight spilling in freely like a blessing. The air felt lighter, the oppressive weight dissolving as the evil held at bay faded into oblivion. They were free. "Mommy! You found us!" Evan beamed, arms wide open, and Lisa knelt to embrace both her children tightly, surrendering to the sweet relief, their warmth ensconcing her like a shield against the darkness. "I love you both so much," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks as joy surged through their reunion, reshaping the darkness into light. The memories of suffering hung in the air like distant whispers, but they were overshadowed by the radiant power of love. As they stepped from the clearing, the path unfolded before them, winding into the safety of the sunlight that now illuminated the horizon, leaving the shadows of Hollow Creek behind them. Lisa held her children close, wrapping them in her determination. She would never let fear dictate their realities again. With hearts full of hope and strength, they journeyed back toward a new beginning. Because in that moment, they understood the bonds of love could overcome even the darkest of horrors, and as they walked away from the cursed trail, Lisa turned back one last time, a fierce glimmer in her eye. "We survived. And we will always choose love." The sun hung high, radiating warmth as they stepped boldly into their future, leaving behind the cursed lineage. But the lesson remained etched in their hearts: the shadows would always exist, waiting, but for now, they had chosen the light. As for you, dear friends, this is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. You need to share your reactions and theories in the comments below. Flood the comments, let us hear every single thought, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Step up, true fans, your support matters.